evil's afoot.
I don't think that's such a good idea.
Oh, Cringer, you'll be getting neutered soon.
Oh, no!
By the power of Grayskull!
Yes! No, this isn't gonna end well.
No!
Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to SOLzone. This won't do. There you go,
There you go, much better. Hello there, everyone. Welcome back to Soul Reviews. I'm your host. It's been a while, but I'm back and ready to tackle a film that, trust me when I say, is something special.
Now, during our last review of Road Trip, I'd briefly touched upon the subject of nostalgia and the impact it had on me personally.
Now today I want to tackle a subject that is a bit more familiar to you, the audience. The 80s.
Oh yes, we're getting our retro on in this episode, covering a film based on a toy TV series that is synonymous with the age of synth and ridiculous fashion itself.
The Masters of the Universe.
Oh boy, this film. God, where to start? Well, maybe a refresher is in order. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe is a sci-fi sword and sorcery-ish series from the 1980s that was created to coincide with the toy producer Mattel's action figure line of the same name. The initial designs of He-Man originate back to the 1970s, with Conan the Barbarian as a source of inspiration.
Oh yeah, no shit.
The main plot of the story usually revolves around the ongoing battle of good and evil on the futuristic planet of Eternia. The Prince of Eternia, Prince Adam, secretly transforms into He-Man, the mightiest man in the universe, to stop his nemesis Skeletor, an evil wizard bent on acquiring the power of Grayskull. Along for the ride is a pantheon of heroes such as Man-at-Arms, his adoptive daughter Teela, the magician Orko, and He-Man's trusty steed Cringer, who turns into the mighty Battle Cat.
Until he finally gets neutered, that is.
Oh, no!
Another later edition of the show was Prince Adam's long-lost twin sister, Princess Adora. Or as you might know her from her current Netflix series,
I know it's not the theme of the current show, sue me.
The series was everywhere back in its heyday, and still proceeds to crop into the collective mindset to this day. From classic memes to popular TV ads, multiple show adaptations and cameos even in current shows and films, He-Man has always been a staple of pop culture. And with the recent announcement of Netflix producing a new animated show and a new live-action movie starring Noah Centineo as He-Man in the workings as well, it felt like the right time to tackle the 1987 classic The Masters of the Universe.
The film was directed by Gary Goddard and released in the US on the 7th of August 1987 and in Germany on the 17th of December that same year.
It was produced by the Canon Film Group and a Mattel toy company on a budget of $23 million and featured a cast of both uprising stars and seasoned veterans. The film, however, bombed in cinemas, only seeing a limited release in cinemas due to Canon's limited resources for advertising and the decline of popularity in the He-Man series. Mix this together with probably every single conceivable problem a film set can have during production, and you end up with a film project like this. The film begins, promisingly enough, with an epic painting of Castle Grayskull that looks a hell of a lot more impressive than my cute little rendition of it. Following the opening, we get our titles, and Jesus, these look like the fancy PowerPoint presentations we did back in 10th grade. But still better than Superman 4's shitty opening titles, another failed venture of Canon's. We get a first peek of Eternia, where we get our introduction to the film's arguable main star, Skeletor, played by the legendary Frank Langella.
And let me emphasize right now, I love every single moment this guy is on screen.
Which, thankfully, is a lot. Langella was given a huge amount of leeway in developing his character, and it shows. His dialogue, mannerisms, costume, this is a performance born from passion. Which is confirmed by Langella himself, who has admitted over the years that this was one of his favorite parts to play as an actor. And the fact that he took on the role because his son was a huge fan of the series makes it all the cooler.
Between the amazing Raul Julia playing Bison in the Street Fighter films for his kids, and Langella in this one, they just don't make actors like this anymore, and yes, Street Fighter's on my bucket list.
Along for the ride is Skeletor's second in command, Evelyn, played by Meg Foster, who also owns every scene she's in.
Fun fact, when they were originally doing the casting for this film, they approached Miss Sarah Douglas of Superman 2 to play the part of Evelyn, but ended up going for Miss Foster on account of her eyes.
And yes, I can see that, but she also puts in one hell of a performance with some of the scenes I will get onto later. Skeletor and his army have infiltrated Grayskull and have taken the guardian of the castle, the Sorceress, hostage. And the Sorceress...
The Sorceress is an interesting character and all, but I can't really say I ever really liked her design in this. She kind of looks as if she stole a part of Superman's Fortress of Solitude, crafted it into a helmet, and is now working part-time as Disco Ball. We do like our disco.
Skeletor broadcasts his victory to the world, which in this case is only made up of a few shots of the desert with a few guys standing around for what must be days. We finally get a look at the film's hero, He-Man, played by Dolph Lundgren.
And he looks the part. I mean, a guy who can pull off the Soviet murder machine from Rocket 4 certainly can pull off the physique of He-Man. His voice, on the other hand...
Now, why are you so important to Skeletor?
Yeah, I know English as a foreign language is difficult. I mean, come on.
I'm from Germany. We are the masters of a comically bad pronunciation.
In my mind, globalization and market economy are indivisible, be justifiable, appreciate, political crisis, management, stabilization.
But this is just unfortunate, and it leads to the film's first major problem, its hero. He-Man barely features in the film except for his action scenes, and his dialogue consists nearly entirely of short lines.
Let her go!
On top of that, Lundgren was still in a very early stage of his career, so most of the time he just looks confused and doesn't really stand out in any scene. Hence, most of the film is carried by its supporting cast, and Skeletor.
I mean, if you want an obvious giveaway of how underutilized He-Man is in this film, look no further than the title. It's not He-Man. It's not He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. No, it's just Masters of the Universe.
The filmmakers got around this problem by giving Lundgren enough additional attempts to suppress his strong accent, and gave him some support by having more veteran actors covering for him with their dialogue.
What a barbaric world.
Never think while you're hungry.
Those include TV star John Cypher as Man-at-Arms, Eternia's weapons master, and his daughter Teela, played by Chelsea Field. After fending off some of Skeletor's robotic troops, He-Man reunites with Man-at-Arms and Teela. They also manage to save a master locksmith named Gwildor, played by Billy Barty. The three are informed that Skeletor was able to infiltrate Castle Grayskull with the use of the Cosmic Key, a device Gwildor invented that allows travel to any given location in the universe. Evelyn stole the completed device, leaving Gwildor with the prototype. They are soon discovered by Skeletor's troops and...
Wow. Well, at least we can now say the film doesn't just focus on Lundgren's assets, but given the source material.
The three escape and make their way to Grayskull using an underground tunnel. Why Evelyn didn't notice this tunnel while she stole the Cosmic Key from Gwildor?
I don't know. Let's just say convenience.
After arriving to the castle, the gang tries to rescue the sorceress, who is slowly being drained by Skeletor's power. Unable to rescue her, they are ambushed by Skeletor and his troops and are forced to flee using Gwildor's prototype. They coincidentally end up on Earth, where the bulk of the remaining film takes place.
Which brings us to the film's other big problem: budgetary constraints and studio intervention.
This film was hammered by so many factors, most of which involved the budget being cut and Mattel forcing many restrictions on the film of what they may or may not show. For example, For the first half of the production, the filmmakers were not allowed to show any extensive violence or killing, hence the reason that for the most part, He-Man and the other Eternians are fighting robots. As the production went on though, and with their He-Man related sales plummeting, Mattel gave the green light for more extensive fight scenes and even death scenes to be added later on in the film. As for budgetary cuts, certain elements that should have been fundamental to a film like this had to be cut down, such as extensive scenes of Eternia or characters like Cringer and Orko being absent in the film. The latter being extensively replaced by Gwildor, whereas Cringer was cut out entirely out of the film.
Much like his balls.
No!
Needless to say, the set pieces we do get to see beyond the seriously impressive multi-layered throne room of Grayskull are mostly replaced by urban California in the late 80s.
Suddenly makes a reimagining by Netflix a lot more attractive, doesn't it?
Back in the plot, the heroes have arrived on Earth, but have lost the cosmic key and decide to split up to find it. We are now introduced to the final two leads in the film, Julie, played by a young pre-Friends Courtney Cox, and Kevin, played by Robert Duncan McNeil, who you might remember from Star Trek Voyager. The two are currently visiting the grave of Julie's parents, who died in a tragic plane crash the year before.
So we're all supposed to go to the beach that day. But I said I had to study because I wanted to spend the day with you. So I took the plane to Kathleen instead.
Whoa. What was that? Let's hear that again.
But I said I had to study because I wanted to spend the day with you.
Wow. That was a nice way of indirectly putting the blame of your parents' death on your boyfriend.
Now you might be thinking I'm reading too much into this, but he never counters that statement, and he even pulls an appropriate face when she says it.
Anywho,
the two discover the device and take it to their school. Kevin, who is a local musician, believes it to be some kind of new synthesizer.
Of course he does.
And activates it, allowing Skeletor's forces to track them. Not long after that, Skeletor's henchmen arrive to hunt them down. He-Man manages to fend them off, telling Julie about the Eternians and the Cosmic Key's importance. They then set off with the other Eternians to save Kevin, in a pink Cadillac that was modified by Gwildor with a light-up rocket engine.
Can you tell this was co-produced by a toy company in the late 80s? They were being so subtle about it.
While all this is going on, Kevin brought the Cosmic Key to a friend in a music store, and upon returning to the now messed up school, he runs into Police Detective Lubick, played by James Tolkien. And if you don't know who James Tolkien is,
1. Shame you. 2. Check out his Wikipedia page. This guy was in everything.
Lubick suspects that Kevin has stolen the Cosmic Key and decides to put him under house arrest, while he tries to get some information from Kevin's friend in the music store. Whilst he's there, Kevin gets attacked by a second team of Skeletor's men, now led by Evelyn, who ends up using a truth-telling device on him to tell her the location of the Cosmic Key's prototype. Kevin is later discovered by Julie and the Eternians, who free him from his collar, and the group travels to the music store to face off with Skeletor's forces. During the ensuing battle, Julie is tricked into giving Evelyn the Cosmic Key via Spaceballs reference. And soon after, Skeletor arrives on Earth with his strike force, and a battle ensues in the surprisingly abandoned streets. After a skirmish with Skeletor's forces both on the ground and in the air, He-Man eventually has to surrender himself to Skeletor to save his captured friends, with Langella, once again, owning all of his scenes.
I give you a choice. Return with me to Eternia as my slave and save their despicable lives, or perish with them on this primitive and tasteless planet.
The remaining heroes are stranded on Earth with their damaged Cosmic Key, but without the coordinates to get to Eternia, it seems impossible. But they are running out of time, as Julie was heavily injured after one of Skeletor's spells hit her. But with the powers of 80s synth, they manage to find the right coordinates and travel to Eternia. While all this is going on, Skeletor has returned to Grayskull with He-Man and...
Well, that scene just happened.
Okay, there's obviously other things going on during the scene, but really?
Let it be said, I didn't think that Dolph Lundgren could be undressed in this film any more than he already has, but I guess I'm wrong.
Let's address the elephant in the room when it comes down to this film. The film has more than the odd homoerotic undertone in it, and the campiness level of the film is just out there. Now this is nothing shocking or even new given, once again, the source material of the film and the aesthetic that inspired the He-Man designs in the first place, but in this scene, more than any other, you get the full whack of that notion.
Now, this is nothing negative by any stretch of the imagination, but it is something that will be brought up when talking about this particular film.
So after that scene, Skeletor obtains the ultimate power of the universe, complete with an epic speech.
I am a part of the cosmos. Eternity flows through me. Of what consequence are you now? This planet, these people, they are nothing to me. The universe is power. Pure, unstoppable power. Kneel before your master.
He thus transforms into his ultimate form, which is...
ostentatious, don't you think?
And proceeds to tell He-Man to get on his knees.
I swear I'm not doing this on purpose.
The rest of the heroes arrive in the throne room, and during the ensuing gunfight, He-Man manages to free himself and reclaim his sword, leading to what we've all been waiting for. From here on out, it's a battle to the death between He-Man and Skeletor. Now, you might have noticed something about this scene.
Where is everyone? And why are the lights out all of a sudden? This can actually be explained.
In the final days of the shoot, Cannon finally pulled the plug and shut down any further filming, which left the final scene between He-Man and Skeletor without a conclusion. As such, the director came up with the idea of removing the lights as a result of the warriors clashing against one another, and then continued filming some additional scenes in the evening. But because they still didn't have a proper conclusion, 2 months later, the director returned to the set with Lundgren and a small crew, and shot the final scene with the help of Langella's stunt double as Skeletor. He-Man destroys Skeletor's staff, returning him to his normal form, and after a short sword fight, Skeletor is plunged into a pit.
Where have I seen this before? No, can't think of it.
All the same though, the heroes are victorious.
Victory.
And the sorceress's powers have been restored. Julie and Kevin can now return back to Earth, with Detective Lubick staying behind to, I don't know, exchange space STIs with the Eternians. It's not as if any of them were ever exposed to Earth's diseases.
Although, how amazing would it be if the mightiest man of the universe ended up being defeated by the common cold a la War of the Worlds?
I don't think so.
Nah, worth a shot.
The two say their farewells, and are transported not just back to Earth, but right before Julie's parents intend to take the plane that would kill them. Julie stops them, thus changing the future, and both Kevin and her remember their adventure in Eternia. We end up on a close-up of a jewel that was given to them to remember the Eternians, and are treated to the final corny shot of Grayskull and He-Man. The end.
Or is it?
I'll be back.
No, you won't.
And that was Masters of the Universe. It's corny, it's flashy, it's the 80s, and I think I love it.
Don't misunderstand though, this film has a lot of problems. Mostly having to do with its production history and trying to realize a project of that scale.
Many elements of the original He-Man lore had to be dropped. The setting on Earth is entirely underwhelming, and He-Man's lack of presence is truly regrettable. But you can feel the passion that went into this film, and seeing what the filmmakers had to go through to realize this film is downright admirable.
It reminds me of university, really. You would have this final big assignment in the end of the year, or in my case, a film project that had to be completed, and everything would go wrong in the process. And in the end, you just had to push through to finally get that result. And in a way, that kind of applies to a lot of things in life.
The actors in this film did a fine job, and the people involved with the set designs and costumes for the few scenes in Eternia that we did actually get to see really helped lending those scenes a sense of wonder. All this being underlined with a fantastic score by Bill Conti, which perfectly encapsulates the sense of adventure you would expect from a He-Man film. Alas, as I said before, the film bombed badly and became one of the final nails in the coffin for Cannon Films, who shortly before released both the ill-favored Over the Top with Sylvester Stallone and the notoriously bad Superman 4, A Quest for Peace.
What a shame. But it does make you wonder what the film would have been like if it had been produced under better circumstances.
But I suppose we can look forward to the upcoming animated series and film to rekindle the He-Man epos once more.
And that's all the time we have for today. Brinja and I have a date with a vet. Isn't that right, buddy? You okay there, buddy? Oh, crap. Oh, shit! Thank you for pushing so hard. Cease!